Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Bigfoot Tales, and today we're going to jump onto the Bigfoot Tales tour bus and head to um, the state of Utah, and we're going to go back in time 120 some years ago to Salt Lake City and look at the trial of what might be or might have been the first ever Bigfoot hoax trial ever to be conducted in the United States or anywhere else in the world. Um, as some of you may know by following me, as I have been researching the history of the stories behind Bigfoot. Many people spend their time in the woods looking for the actual creature itself, but I'm a folklorist slash historian at heart. So I look at the history behind things, and I like to see what's going on behind the scenes and why something has become something that it is. And, I find that prior to the early 1900s, the turn of the century anyways, these creatures have always been referred to as wild men and considered to be some sort of, feral human type of creature, as opposed to a normal everyday human like you or I would be. But along the years, there have been many hoaxes. There have been many incidences where these wild men have been captured and put on display, supposedly. I find upon examination of some of the older stories that in many cases some of these wild men were actually various primates captured in the jungles of Africa and Asia and put on display in cities. These were eventually found out to be what they were as people's education grew and our knowledge of the animals of the world grew and became more common. But again, there have always been hoaxes as long as there had been this mystery creature of the woods that we are currently calling Bigfoot or Sasquatch today. And again, we're going to jump all the way back in time to the Deseret newspaper. And the Deseret newspaper is an old newspaper coming out of Salt Lake City, Utah. It was originally the main voice of the Mormon nation. And this one is dated May 12th, 1891. And it's titled The Wild Man Swindle. And we'll go a little bit of a backgrounder. There was a couple of papers or pages from previous days' news from this newspaper that talked about a wild man that was supposed to have been put on display. And again, as a backgrounder, this wild man was described as being covered with hair, wild, untamed, had to be chained and kept in a cage. And other things relating to the state of his or her wildness, whatever it was. But it was portrayed as a wild man, and it was advertised that for 10 cents you could go in and see this creature. Of course, today, we have some of the same things going on with many of the hoaxers around. And I got a suspicion that we're going to find that a current suspected hoax is going to be shown to be just that. And everybody's going to be, once again, disappointed and angered. And once again, these parties are probably not going to be prosecuted for what they're doing. And, as a history back into going this, the lawyers can actually go back to this case and look at it as a standing case that can help their defense a little bit to get them off with a little bit less than they should have. But anyhow, for those of you that are in a hurry and don't like to listen to me ramble, we'll get right into the article. And again, this is from the Deseret News, May 12th, 1891. So it's, 120 plus years old now. But it's titled The Wild Man Swindle, and subtitled All the Defendants Were Fined for Their Little Game. Yesterday afternoon, the examination on charge of obtaining money by false pretenses of Thompson, alias the Wild Man of Utah, and the three managers of the late Main Street exhibition took place before Commissioner Norrell, the little courtroom being crowded with curious spectators. The Wild Man now appeared like any ordinary mortal, minus his hirsute appendages, and looked as meek as a lamb. He is of small stature, has a bald head, and an unkempt beard, and was shabbily dressed. Attorney F.B. Stevens prosecuted, while Judge McDowell defended. The latter opened by taking exception to the complaint, which, as above stated, charged the defendants with obtaining money under false pretenses by representing that they had on exhibition a wild and woolly man who was captured in southern Utah and had to be kept chained in a cage, when in fact he was not captured anywhere. He was neither wild nor woolly, and did not have to be kept chained. The demurrer having been overruled, Deputy Marshal Bynum testified. On Saturday afternoon, the defendant, Branch, was in front of a room on Main Street, shouting that they had on exhibition there a wild and hairy man, who had to be chained in a cage. I gave Branch 10 cents and went in. The defendant, Thompson, who was supposed to be the wild man, was in a cage, and the defendant, Meehan, had hold of a chain and appeared to be the wild man's keeper. I paid the money, expecting to see a wild man. And to Mr. McDowell, I had heard that the show was a fake, and I went in partly to investigate it. Sheriff Burt said, on Saturday, my attention was attracted by the defending Branch shouting that there was on exhibition a wild and woolly man, who was captured in southern Utah by cowboys, and they had to keep him chained down. I didn't pay anything to go in. I saw the defendant, Thompson, in a cage, and this man, Meehan, was acting as the wild man's keeper. I asked the men if the man was really wild, and they replied that he was, and said that if I wanted to know anything more about him, to go over to McGill. I swore out a warrant for the arrest of them all, and went back just as the show closed. The alleged wild man was just getting out of his cage, and I told him I had a warrant for his arrest. He at once produced a license from the city. Just then, Mr. McGill came in and said that he was running the show, and was responsible for everything. I took the wild man, plucked off some false hair, eyebrows, and whiskers, and then took him into custody. Later, I made him take a bath, and this was the result. And at this point, the sheriff produced about a pound of store-bought hair. Marshal Parsons stated that he went into the show and saw the wild man. The defendant, Branch, stood at the door shouting that they had a wild man inside. Burt Russell testified that he paid 10 cents to see the wild man. J. Jenkins, reporter, testified that some time ago McGill told him that a wild man had been captured and he expected to exhibit him there. W. Keeler said, I saw the defendant Thompson, the alleged wild man, here some time ago. He was engaged in delivering bills for Wonderland. I heard him say that he expected to go on exhibition as a wild man. This occurred about 5 weeks ago. Thompson was then being fixed up as a wild man. He had a bottle of whiskey, and I took a drink with him. I have since been discharged from Wonderland. I've never heard it said that he was to be exhibited at Wonderland. Deputy Marshal Bynum testified that he went in to see the wild man on Thursday, paying 10 cents. The defendant, Meehan, was standing by the case with a stick. He told him that the wild man was captured by cowboys in a cave in southern Utah. The prosecution here rested, and Judge McDowell moved for the discharge of the defendants because the elements of the case charged had not been proved. The witness for the prosecution did not rely at all upon the representations made by the defendants. If the thing was the greatest swindle on earth, still, if the parties went into understanding the nature of the affair, then it was not obtaining money under false pretenses. Commissioner Norrell said that the proof certainly showed that it was represented that a wild man was on exhibition, but there had been no showing made that any witness went in expecting to see a genuine, wild, hairy man. That was an essential point. The witnesses evidently paid their 10 cents to see a fraud, supposing that it was a fraud. He was inclined, therefore, to discharge the defendants. Mr. Stevens called the court's attention to the fact that it had at least been clearly shown that the defendants were guilty of an attempt to obtain money under false pretenses, and they should be held for that. Said offense was punishable by one-half that fixed for the higher offense. The commissioner held that the position taken by Mr. Stevens was correct and imposed a fine of $100 upon McGill, as he was the prime mover in the affair. The other three defendants were fined $50 each, and the costs were assessed equally against them all. Judge McDowell gave notice of appeal. And that's the end of the article, and again, it's coming from 1891. So back then, it shows that, the wild man of the woods was a well-known creature. It had standing in the knowledge of most peoples of the day, and it was considered to be human, and it was considered to be fully covered with hair, much as an animal would be. To break this down into a shorter piece here, let's just summarize this by saying that this type of hoax has been going on for years, much as the type of hoax that we see being, foisted upon us today. And it's unfortunate that many people have such a desire to see the unknown that they can be so easily taken by those people who are corrupt enough to be willing to take advantage of those who may be, to be polite, easily taken advantage of. And take this as a lesson and a suggestion that if you're going to be involved in some of the things that are going on, that you make an attempt to thoroughly investigate what's going on so that you don't become defrauded and believe that there is a Bigfoot someplace where there is no Bigfoot. I have no doubt that at some point in time, the final day will come when we will no longer be finding Bigfoot. We will be examining Bigfoot. Otherwise, it will be proven to be an absolute hoax, an absolute mythical creature, and that will be the end of it. But one way or the other, that day is going to come. Until then, we're going to search the highlands and the lowlands and the woodlands of the world, searching for these mythical creatures, and one by one, they will be brought to light and proven to be exactly what they are. Again, it's just going to be a short thing today. So we'll advise you to don't forget to comment, rate, and share, and subscribe. And hope you enjoyed this little article of what may well have been the first Bigfoot hoax prosecution to ever have occurred in this country. And let's hope that it wasn't the last one. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget to check out my books. The links will be below. Sasquatch, Searching for the Answer, and Legends of Maine, and some of my other books. We'll talk to you later. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Bigfoot Tales.